Thomas in Canada, who wants to talk about non-belief in Christianity leads to murder. It's in the Bible, and we shouldn't murder. Thomas, would you like to make an argument for this?
Yeah, absolutely. How you guys doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. Yeah, so first I just kind of want to start. Can you guys give me your definition of what you think Christianity is?
I don't know how that applies. I don't think it matters for this discussion personally, but a set of teachings and practices passed down through history, supposedly going back to Jesus Christ himself, who, based on those teachings and practices, is supposedly the incarnation of Yahweh. How's that sound?
I'd say anyone who says, "Oh, I'm a Christian," I'll be like, "Whatever you believe in." Cool.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
If you say it and someone else says, "No, you're not," then you can argue between each other,
exactly.
And then once you decided, you can just tell me.
But yeah, I mean,
so basically the belief in Jesus, you would say, right? That kind of sums it up.
Sure.
I would guess most Christians believe in Jesus.
Okay. So I just want to point out in John 14:12, Jesus says, "Anyone who believes in me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works shall he do, because I go unto the Father." So,
what does that mean? Do you want to translate that?
So he's saying that if you believe in me, you'll do the same things I do. He also says, if you love me, you'll keep my sayings. If you don't love me, you won't keep my sayings. So
you believe in Jesus, Thomas? How many loaves and fishes have you been dividing lately?
Yeah, have you walked on water?
Yeah. Have you calmed a storm or caused 400 some odd fish to pull into somebody's net?
Well, works and miracles are two completely different things, right? Works
are they?
Works are the things he's done in life, right?
Are they not used interchangeably in the New Testament? The term works and miracles? Are they not?
Not really. No, works
really?
are the things which you do. Absolutely, right?
So are you saying all of the non-supernatural stuff that Jesus did? Is that what you mean? All of the non-supernatural stuff? So I don't really know what it means, because like Jesus, like Jesus did a lot of things, and like he ate food. I do that, and I don't believe in Jesus. So
he cursed.
I'm just trying to work out what things. I'm not trying to do some kind of word game here. I'm just trying to understand, because if we're not talking about miracles, I'm just trying to work out, because I know you're sort of forming this argument towards murder or whatever we're about to discuss, but I want to know, like, Jesus, I presume, like, allegedly didn't murder anyone. So I mean, I presume you haven't murdered anyone too, and I haven't murdered anyone. I don't know what like things. Secularity has murdered someone. But like, I just which things, when we're saying works, like what is it that he did that you think you will then do? Like, what's an example?
So miracles are miracles. Works are defined as there's good works and there's bad works, and it's basically how you treat others, right? Jesus says that if you basically do unto others as you'd have them do unto yourself, right? He says, love one another. That's the commandment I give you, right? So the works are using good things you do for humanity versus bad.
You're using it in a way of just to clarify. You're using it in a kind of way of like, it's the way in which you treat others, like morally. Kind of, there's different things. So like, you could go around punching people. Jesus didn't do that. You know that you're saying that's a bad thing. So that's cool. And then, okay, just so I was understanding. So you're saying there's a bit in the Bible where it's like, if you believe in Jesus, that you'll do like what he does, and he's pretty good. That's kind of what
Jesus says that. If you believe in me, then the works I do shall you do also, and greater works than me, right? So he's saying the things that I've done to others, you'll do as well. So when people are killing people, you have to look back at Jesus and say,
I'm glad we finally brought it back to killing of people and stuff. But are you saying that if somebody says today, I'm a Christian, and then goes and murders somebody later, that they're not actually a Christian?
Is that what you're saying? No, they're not. According to Jesus, no, they're not. They're not doing the works, and they're not following his commands. So according to Jesus, if you believe in me,
do you not feel that ends up being in a bit of a no true Scotsman kind of argument, though? Because it, like, there could be so say someone you know from your church or something, you've known them 30 years or whatever, and every single day they've gone, they say the same things, you hang out with their families and stuff. As far as you know, they're a Christian, their beliefs, you truly believe what they're saying. next day, out, they murder someone, maybe in just blind rage over road rage or something. Sometimes it happens to people. Suddenly, I mean, were they never a Christian, or did they suddenly not become a Christian at the point of murder?
Yeah.
Or I get that you could say it wasn't a Christian act. Maybe you would argue that, though.
Sure.
I don't know. God seems to like murdering, but just what point? What makes them not a Christian? Were they never a Christian? Is that kind of what you're saying, or? Because lots of people who are in prison for murder would say they were Christians today and were Christians at the time, and they would say they believed in Jesus and they think Jesus. And lots of people murder, and they reckon that God told them to do it. So
they explicitly state it. So
So Paul says that Jesus died as a propitiation for the remission of sins that are past. So once you become reborn, you change yourself. So if you claim to be a Christian and you've been forgiven for your remission of sins that are past, you will no longer have these desires, or at least you will no longer act on them in the future. So if someone's going to go out and kill somebody, then yesterday they said they were a Christian, fine, but you have to take it to Jesus. And what did Jesus say? Jesus says, if you believe on me, you'll keep my saying, or you'll do the works
Thomas,
that I do. If
I
you
don't
love me,
feel
you
in
keep
any
my
way,
saying.
shape, or form the last few words you have spoken had anything to do with kind of what Katie was getting at. But yeah, I think if you're taking the stance that if somebody does a bad thing, then by definition they can't be Christian, I would just agree with where Katie was at. Like this is you just arbitrarily deciding where the circle is for what is Christianity.
No.
And you're not actually using anything that's consistent, and that's a problem.
Jesus, but you guys don't like it because it goes against your whole case for Christianity, right? But the
you got me, Thomas. Yeah,
it doesn't affect me. Even if Christians didn't murder, that wouldn't prove to me that God was real. So that's not really. It doesn't upset my worldview if there's some relation between Christianity and murder rates or true belief in Jesus. Like that's fine, and it'd be interesting. I'd actually be interested to find out if there was some kind of link between the two rates. But what I'm saying is, what it sounds like to me is there are just a bunch of people. Some of them are Christian, some of them are Muslim, some of them are atheists, and some of them kill people. And it seems like when an atheist kills someone, if I said, "Oh, they weren't a real atheist," then you'd be like, "What? Fuck off!" Yeah, they were. And then if a Muslim killed someone and someone was like, "Oh, they're not a real Muslim," you'd be like, "Yeah, they are." And then if a Christian kills someone, you're like, "They're not a Christian." I don't know. It just feels like,
Yeah, but
you must be seeing where I'm coming from.
Is that the difference is that Muhammad said to kill others. The difference is atheists don't have a
the Bible straight up tells people to go kill other people in the name of Yahweh. And Jesus's words have definitely been used for people to. Also, the Quran says that killing an innocent person is like taking the life of the whole world. So, I mean, we can go tit for tat on this every single time. And in every single holy book, the issue is that when you stack up the verses and the sentences and I can work this magic to like make this sort of not seem bad, when you stack that up versus the atrocious stuff wins every single time. There is always, 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 always more of it. And so, I mean, yeah, sure, you can pick out a single verse and talk about how cool it is that Christians don't murder, but I don't think it has anything to do with the teachings from Christianity, because if so, why aren't more people dividing loaves and fishes? Why aren't more people cursing fig trees? Why aren't more people doing a lot of the things that are in the Bible? And the answer is because as a person, inside of them, they recognized, hey, some of these things are not as great, and like killing people is not a great thing, and I shouldn't do that. Like,
yeah. Also, I might argue that like there are lots of murder isn't the only thing, right, that Jesus thinks is bad. Like murdering is one thing, but there's also like adultery and lying and stealing and all these kinds of things. And I think if you started saying, "Oh, they're not," Donald Trump isn't a Christian because he cheated on his wife or whatever. If you start drawing these rules down, I mean, how many Christians are you going to end up with left?
Yeah.
I mean, will there be any? Is there any? Like Jesus said, I don't know what the quote is, but like he is without sin, cast the first stone or something. Like, surely every human has broken the rules. If you hadn't sinned, then what do you need Jesus to forgive you for? I mean,
Mhm. You're born a sinner.
Because everybody sins, but everybody sins.
yeah, but
repentance.
isn't murder just a
If you have
sin?
repentant heart, then you won't sin. You'll fight
Yeah,
your
But
fight your temptation, right?
but all
No.
Christians sin, right?
Yeah.
Thomas, you sin, right? That is a thing you do.
Of course, Jesus says few will make it, though. He makes that
So-
statement. He tells
So
us.
then
Yeah.
are you not a real Christian because you sin? And you said that once you become a real Christian, you don't sin anymore. Does that mean you're not a real Christian,
Well,
Thomas?
I have a repentant heart, but will I make it to heaven? I'm not sure, right?
Well, that didn't answer my question, but I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you talking about whether or not you think you're going to make it to heaven. But again, if you say that once somebody becomes a real Christian, they don't sin, and you, as a professing Christian, admit that you sin.
QED,
I said
mate.
repentant heart, though, right? I said that a long
Yeah,
time.
but I
So
I
you're
never said that people don't sin. It's a repentant heart that changes,
So
right? And
the
if you
thing
have-
that
But a
you said
murderer might
earlier,
repent.
right? The thing that you said earlier now can't possibly apply by your own logic that you've given us here, because you were like, well, see, they wouldn't murder if they're a Christian. And now you're saying, well, they might murder because they might not actually have a repentant heart about it. So
But maybe they might murder and then
I
have a
never said that
repentant
they would
heart.
That's true. That's true.
But you guys
Yeah,
are
maybe they
you're
will.
twisting what I'm saying. Just let me explain it. When
I
if you
think
have
you've
a
explained it.
repentant heart and you're born again, then you will try not to sin. So something
So
like
you
murder.
will
Oh,
guarantee not sin,
yeah.
or you will try not
In
to
our-
sin.
In our situation we were talking about earlier, where
Why not?
your hypothetical
By
friend.
having
Hang on a sec, Thomas. Just to
Well,
like
I'm
lay
not
out the
Christian.
point that we're trying to make. This sort of hypothetical friend I talked about earlier. At your church, you've been going to church with for 30 years, and they get into a moment of blind rage over like a car parking spot or something, and they punch someone, and that person dies, and it counts as a murder. That something really shocking happens. Earlier, you said, "Oh, well, they wouldn't do that if they're a Christian," but then what if they then had a repentant heart and they ask for forgiveness from Jesus, and like surely then they are Christian again? And that's kind of the point I made earlier. Is this? Do you see that's how it sounds like a contradiction to us? Because earlier you were kind of saying Christians don't murder, and now you're saying, what if they're repentant heart, and what if they believe that Jesus has died for their sins? Then so Christians do murder?
True Christians don't murder, and that's the point. Like when I became a Christian, right? You
Just-
change
but
your ways. I used to,
you said-
desire all the women. Now I try not to even look at women, right? You change things about yourself through your repentant heart, right? These are things.
Do you feel as if when you add qualifiers before the thing you were talking about, like you have one sentence where you say like I like toast, and then you have another one where you say like I like buttered and like super crispy and maybe a little bit of like bacon on my toast? Do you feel like those two things are the same? Because if you don't, then I want you to go back and watch just a minute ago where you said, before I became a Christian, I desired all the women. I think that was how you put it. And then you said something along the lines of, now that I'm a Christian, I really try not to. It kind of sounds like those aren't the same thing. And what you're saying is, at the end of the day, you, a professing Christian with a repentant heart, Thomas, still sin. And since all sins are the same in the eyes of God, kind of sounds like what you're saying about this whole Christianity, leads to not murdering, real Christians don't murder. Kind of sounds like all of that is what you would affectionately call bullshit. So
I think you should go back and listen, because I recall saying.
I will go back and listen. I will gladly go back and watch you say the thing that you have repeatedly recanted multiple times. So
I haven't. I've explained that I'm in no position to say that I'm a Christian. I don't know if I'm getting it. But if someone,
you don't know if you're a Christian,
follow.
how does not knowing whether or not you're going to heaven or hell afterwards have anything to do with your current state of belief? That doesn't make any sense, Thomas. Like whether or not you go to heaven doesn't matter as to whether or not you personally right now believe in the teachings of Jesus Christ and try your hardest to follow them, even though you may not be perfect, but you have a repentant heart. And thank goodness you're not a murderer, which none of us are here. We are all non-murdering people, whether or not our hearts are repentant. And I think that's probably the good thing to take away.
Yeah, and in a world where you don't know you're a Christian, like if
Yeah.
no one knows whether they're a Christian, then you could have like 10 people all saying they're Christian, and maybe one of them is, or maybe 9 of them are. Like it kind of becomes completely meaningless then.
And how many of those people are murderers? That's what I want to know. How many of those?
Wow.
Sorry.
Yeah. So the point is that your actions determine if you follow Jesus, and if you follow Jesus, then you're a
Doesn't make
Christian. That's the
sense.
whole point of the call. And
Yeah,
you know, like if you look at history, through all these people that did these acts is completely against what Jesus said. So they're far more an atheist than they are a Christian. They don't believe in Jesus, right? Also,
But-
What are the tenets
but
of
Thomas,
atheism?
Thomas, the key point I feel like you've skipped over here is there are lots of sins, right? There is some sins that people do all the time, like coveting or whatever, and there are some things that very few people do, like murder. And I would agree that murder is worse than, like, you know, wearing fabric of the 2 different cloths or whatever. There's loads of different things. There are somewhat worse, and murder is a bad one. But I think a key thing that every Christian I've ever encountered has said they do is that everyone sins. Christians sin, non-Christians sin. And like, so what we're saying here is you're kind of saying that you keep implying that someone isn't a Christian if they sin, but also I think you agree that everyone sins, including yourself.
Yeah.
And the whole point of Jesus is to forgive you for your sins, you know, past sins, however you want to see it. But like, you know, if you say, oh, well, they're not a Christian because they have murdered someone, where do we draw the line? Are they not a Christian because they've done these other sins? Does that mean no one is a Christian if everyone sins? Like, do you see the argument I'm making here?
I see what you're saying, but the point of Christianity is to change yourself through acknowledging your sins, right? And hopefully
Yeah,
at the end of your
I
life,
agree.
you'll change yourself completely, right? Like,
I-
like secular, when you look at a woman, do you stop and go, oh, why am I doing that? Is that something you do? So
depends.
morally, this is how we grow.
That's a dumb question, and it depends. Also, I don't feel like you're addressing anything that Katie said.
Yeah,
And I think the reason you're not addressing it is because you recognize that if you actually make progress on this particular point, that it throws up a really weird wrench in the whole religion thing, because it's kind of confusing as to like how Jesus is like saving us from the sins that we're like born with. And like, even though we're saved from them, we still do them, and there's no way to get out of that weird problem that the Father of Jesus created for all of us. So yeah, I think
Yeah,
I really think
did
you should
address
go
it.
back and you
You
should
just
try
don't
to
listen.
address what Katie was saying. But
I think you need to try to listen to the stuff you say, because you just repeat the same stuff and you don't listen, man. I just explained how Christians overcome sin, and you're like, you don't listen to Katie saying
But-
everybody sins. Like,
but
what are you talking
but
about?
Thomas,
That-
do you agree that everyone sins?
I agree that everybody struggles with sin. Some people acknowledge.
Do you do you agree that everyone sins, not struggles with sin? Do you agree that everyone sins?
Yeah, and that's why I'm pointing that out, though.
yes,
Oh,
yes,
if
yes,
everyone
everyone
sins-
sins, right, Thomas? Yes.
See, you cut me off,
Everyone's-
right? Because you don't want the rest of it, right? So the difference between Christianity and you is I acknowledge my sins and learn from them and try to change. You indulge in
So
them.
you
That's
do
the
sin.
difference
So
between
you
Christianity.
do sin as a
You
professing
do
Christian.
sin. So that means that someone can be a Christian
Secular,
and a
you don't
sinner.
listen, man.
I have no idea. I have no idea why you're incapable of responding in a gentle conversation. The only reason I think right now, again, I'll repeat this. I will gladly repeat this for you, Thomas. And I know I probably shouldn't ascribe motives to you, but I think the number one reason why you're struggling right now, just like you struggle with your sin as a professing Christian, the reason that you're struggling with this is because of the upsetting nature of what this answer is. This answer leads a lot of people to question their religion, and I think that would be a really troubling fact for you. I apologize that that makes you uncomfortable, but you called into the show with a bad argument. So maybe in the future, you should think about whether or not you are actually a Christian, because if you're a sinner by your own definition, you might not be a Christian. So
Yeah, I think Thomas, we're probably gonna.
yeah.
I
Sorry
think
about that.
that we've made our arguments. I think we're going to move on from you, Thomas. Thanks for your call.